So welcome back, Elle Ingalls here. And on this day, we're featuring a new friend of mine who I've just met. And I came across this work and I just felt this connection. And I also really wanted to bring him forward because he's been in the military. And I think that I want to honor him for that. And I want to bring forward so much about what happens with leadership in those roles. And so he has a leadership podcast. So I want you to get connected in your seat here to Enrique. Enrique is going to come out. I'm so happy to have you here with us, and you get to introduce yourself so that we get to know you, and then share, some great nuggets about leadership, what you see going on. And I'm just so happy you're coming on the show.
Well, thank you, Al, for asking me to be on. It's a privilege to be able to speak about leadership. But hey, everybody, I'm Enrique Acosta Gonzalez. As Al mentioned, 26 years Navy, retired. I was a meteorologist and oceanographer, which is not seldom heard, but enjoyed every bit of those 26 years in that trade. Decided to get out at 26 years and make Orlando my home. So how did I fall into leadership? Well, I did it for a good 12 to 13 years in my latter days as the command senior enlisted leader, and sometimes referred to as command senior chief. And I just fell in love with leadership as a whole at that point, but my leadership challenges happened early on in my career. And so everyone says, you learn good leadership and you learn bad, and so you learn from them both.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And what's your podcast name again?
My podcast is called Developing the Leader Within Podcast.
Nice, nice. So yeah, so tell us about, I'm curious about some of the things that you had to unlearn, if you're willing to share.
Well, it's funny because some people call it unlearning. If you ask me, you can't really unlearn anything. What you can do is modify how you see it and apply what new tools you have gained to those situations. So it's more like learning more
I
instead of
love that. I
right?
really love that because I've heard the unlearning phrase for a while, and I love how you just put it. It's great.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah, and it's all, everybody has their way of interpreting a thing. I do like unlearning because that is a process that you must do. You must unlearn something, but it's not the information. It's more like you must unlearn how you address something
Yeah,
and
like the
learn.
pattern you
Yeah,
have.
exactly.
Yeah, can you give us an example? I love real life example here.
Yeah. So look, when I was growing up, single family home, Puerto Rican house, not much to do in terms of financial status and environment, right? So I grew up in the Bronx with whatever my mom could afford and provide at the time. And there are some things that you learn in in that type of household. You learn that the slipper is mightier than the sword. So, there's a lot of things that you learn throughout it. And in this case, how you address something you don't like, right?
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
And so there would be things that children do, and parents sometimes don't like it. And so what do you resort to when you are to address something you don't like? Instead of communicating and teaching me how to communicate effectively, she threw a slipper. Right? So, so what does that do? That shows me that the appropriate way of getting a response from a child is to throw a slipper. That is not the
Right. Yeah.
appropriate, right? And so how many households have repeatedly taught this type of response? Undoubtedly, most of all of us could say in one way, shape, or form, there was either something, a slipper, or something that was either tossed at us, to get us to stop. So you, as an adult now, have to go back to that and say you can't unlearn the experience. No one can tell me that I did not get hit upside the head with a slipper. But
Uh-huh.
what I can do now is say, hey, what do I want my child to go on and teach others? What do I want my child to teach their children? Do I want them to harness the power of effective communication as a child, a young adult, and adult, or do I want them to perpetuate this way of getting, some type of attention without putting in the work? And so I say, because adults that don't want to put in the work, they'll throw a slipper.
Right, right. Yeah.
But the adults that want to not only put in the work, but invest in their children's future will address that a different way. So I did not unlearn my experience, but I learned how to adjust my response.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I remember with my mother was the snapping fingers. Like if she was on the phone, she like snap her fingers. I never did that to my children. Like, there's gonna be no. I would put my hand over the phone and I would talk to my child, and then I'd go back. So this is perfect. It's
Yeah.
great. And the workplace. I mean, we see the same thing happen in the workplace.
Yeah. And so it's those children. Those children grew up. They did not learn how to use effective methods to address a situation. And now they may not throw a slipper, but they may throw a stapler. I've been thrown erasers, you know, and I'm
Mhm.
in school. So,
Right, right.
so now these kids are getting employed, they're getting in positions, and they're abusing their status.
Oh,
So in this case, a leader has no authority over another human being outside of their position.
mhm.
But how many people are impacted by that position? Many, right? We were talking briefly about fight or flight, how do you handle stress, things like that. One of the most stress induced environments is the workplace.
Mhm. Yes, it is.
There's a lot that happens in the workplace that either you'll be scarred from or you will take home and scar somebody else.
Oh, that is such a brilliant point. And I've even seen people, perhaps they're fine to their family, but they take it out on the pet. Like there's
Mm.
something that they take their anger out on, or
Some,
they'll even
yeah.
treat their pet better than their kids. Right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I've seen it. But we're talking about leadership and environments where you can um, unduly influence a life. That's one of the areas and one of the places where most people get hurt. And like, to your point, end up not being able to reply in kind, right? Because if a leader comes to me and they come one way, I have one or two choices. Either I can, take it, or I can reply in kind. I'm the type of person that will probably reply in kind. And not because I aim to be a particular type of person, but so that you can have the notice that after this you will never do that again.
Right.
Right. So, and there's a way of professionally putting that out where you can still communicate how you feel, communicate effectively, and have that person reconsider their actions.
Right. Oh my gosh, yes. And then some people feel very trapped by what consequences might happen.
Oh, yes, yes. I mean, obviously you have to be ready to go.
I was gonna
You have
say,
to be ready to let go of that job. But is that job really for you? If
right,
that's the environment that you're going to be in day in and day out.
right. Yeah,
And not too many people put a vote on themselves.
that's true. And there, that feeling of being trapped, that feeling of being um just I remember I had a client, they just had to see their boss walking down the hall and they went into a panic attack, like, and the secret thoughts. I like to get into the secret thoughts with my
Mm,
clients. And sometimes it's like if they knew what I was actually not doing or didn't feel capable that I could even do in my job,
hmm.
they would fire me, like those fearful thoughts that are so overtaking.
Well, it's funny how you mentioned the stress related to a leader, right? I had an issue in 2017 where the micromanagement was so intense that this one particular day, I extended my hand and I grabbed the knob to go into the building, but I could not turn it.
Wow. Wow.
And I couldn't turn it because inside, deep inside, I did not want to be there. But I had a responsibility, right? I was the provider. I was the person making sure that we were all taken care of as a family. So that's why I was standing in front of the door. But the person, the human being, did not want to turn that knob.
Oh,
And there was an instant battle between my physical and my mental. And I, because I remember asking myself, do you really want to open this door?
wow. Wow. That's incredible. So what are some traits or what are some things that you, again, pivoting and making those changes,
Mm-hmm.
that you would like to share that you think are very important for people to do?
Well, number one, do you know yourself? Do you know yourself? A lot of people don't know themselves. They've been asked to morph their life to the liking of someone else to the point where they don't even identify with themselves anymore.
Mhm.
They couldn't even tell you who they are.
That's so interesting you bring up that point, because I have people say to me, when we break the stress cycle, which lasts hours in your body, like you're almost never out of it, when you break it, they say, now I know the real me. Like I'm finding the real me underneath all those layers
Mm-hmm.
of stress and what stress does to you. It's like you don't even know your real self. That's so, I didn't expect that to come out of your mouth. So I love this.
No, and it's usually the that is the foundation of many problems, right? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and we go through this uh I'd say, matrix type of living. Day in, day out, we go to the place, we come home, you drive the same route, you're in the same, it's almost like a matrix type of event in your life until you get unplugged. And I love that movie. Until you get unplugged. And then when you get unplugged, you're like, oh my goodness, what is this? And so in leadership, I always ask, do you even know who you are? And most people will tell me they don't. They've lost themselves so long ago they couldn't even tell you who they are. And so if I was to ask or say, hey, this is one thing you could do, to get ahead in whatever, A, B, C, or D. Get acquainted with yourself again. Find yourself. And it may take years, right? Because depending on who you're talking about, if you're talking to me, I have to go back 51 years to even find myself, right? And I had gone through a process in 2017 where I I finally saw myself, but myself was 5 years old. From the age of 5 to whenever it was that time, 40 something, I had been buried under
Right.
so many things.
Wow. I
And
was
I
just
remember
talking
telling,
to, yeah, yeah. I was just talking to, interviewing another speaker. I talked about how like the light goes out of your eyes,
mm-hmm,
and it's usually 5 to age 12, like somewhere in there, you start to see the light go out of children's eyes, and they're losing themselves.
yep.
So
And usually,
wow.
yeah, and usually to other people's desires, right? How many times oh, I want to be like in my house, I want to be a professional gamer. All right. How do we get you there? You know, today, this morning, I was scheduling a walkthrough kind of indoctrination for them at EA Sports.
All right. Uh-huh.
Right. So they want to be professional gamers. One wants to program games and create games. Okay, well, all right. Instead of me saying, no, I'm sorry, son, here in this house, we're teachers, lawyers, and doctors.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Which happens a lot.
Oh, definitely.
And so instead of seeing my son's eyes kind of go dark, no, I want him to say, man, there's nothing I can't do because my parents are willing to support me as long as I do it right. As long as I do due diligence, as long as I know what the cost is going to be, you know, both physically, mentally, and financially,
right.
and whether there is a market for it. You know, so there are things that parents can be doing to facilitate that light not to go out.
Right.
But we're usually trying to live our lives through our children.
Yeah. And there's also, I remember my husband was the stay-at-home dad for my older two, and then we switched. And he would take our little ones, 5 and 3, to the library, not to the children's room. They'd go up there, but he took them to the reference room because they wanted to look at the schematics of planes and trains.
Yeah.
So he'd get these big reference books out, and the little boys were completely quiet, absorbed, page after page, like looking at these diagrams. And as a violinist, I know 5-year-olds that play better than I do. So we underestimate the incredible ability of children also. And my husband and I have always been like, what is it that inspires them? What is it that attracts them to something? And open it up. Like, what is it? And I think we need so much more of that instead of the put them in here and they are here and they're cogs in the wheel. And it's cogs in the wheel that I think that shuts the lights out.
Oh, look, we continue that process as they grow into teenage, right? Oh, I want to do this. Nope, sorry. They get their first job. They go to their leader. Oh, I would like to do this. No, sorry, we can't. You know, it's in cycles, and every avenue they get to cross and ask permission to grow on the green light. We tell them no, it's yellow. No, but yellow I can cross. No, so yellow means slow down.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So even in the traffic system, we don't know what we're telling people not to, not to do something when they can. It's habitual abuse of positional authority that has us scavenging. We're scavenging over what we can do when there's no limit to what we can do.
Right.
The only limit is that person saying no.
Wow. Yeah, that no. I was one of those kids that my parents knew not to say no to me because I was a why girl, which I'm sure drove them crazy. Like, okay, but why not? Why can't I do that? Like,
right.
So that was just, and so they really, and my mom was a social worker, trained as a social worker. She got that really early with me because I don't remember very many no's, because she early on saw that any no was going to create a weird energy in this little girl. That and I think I would agree. I had a grandmother who I didn't really get along with very well, and I used to joke, but it wasn't really a joke. I would say to my mother, if she was my mother, I'd be a druggie and a prostitute. Like, I just would rebel constantly because she had over caution all the time. No, over caution. And I would have just like, but understanding as leaders in the workforce, how are you channeling? In fact, one of my clients is a futurist in her company, and she did an experiment where people could take on some new initiatives outside of their roles, and it just exploded. She thought she might just have a handful of people wanting to do it. No, like 300 people wanted to be involved in the process because it was creative.
Yeah.
It was out of the box. And So
And
find
it's
yourself. I think this is the big takeaway you're bringing forward here, is this finding yourself. So go deeper on that. Like, what are some things you would recommend to people? Like, we were just talking about retreats. I host retreats. You were just in a retreat.
right.
Like, you got to get out of your space, I think,
Mm-hmm.
is one way.
Yeah, you got to get out of your way. A lot of times, we get imposing, and competing asks of us.
Mm-hmm.
Right? All of these are external asks, and what do? We're conditioned to answer, right? Sometimes you just don't have to answer.
Love it.
You don't. There is no requirement to answer anything that you're not either ready to answer or unwilling to answer. And so when you start to find yourself, you start to gain some empowerment. And it's not an empowerment, and I'll always caveat this, it's not an empowerment to become more selfish.
Oh, correct. Yeah. Right.
It's not an empowerment so that now you can wield the sword of no and just hurry up and wait
Right. Right. Right.
to everybody, to everybody that comes your way. What it is sometimes we're just not ready for a position. And the reason why we have so much trouble with people in position and authority was because they should have never been there from the get-go. But we're always in a rush to answer.
All right.
Always in a rush to answer. And so they'll say, hey, you want to be the leader of so-and-so? It just came open. You're like, yeah. Is it more money? It's always the question. Is
Yeah.
it more
Right.
money? Not, hey, how many people are there? Because if I have a group more than 5, I might kill 6 or 7, right?
Right.
Because I'm just not capable as a leader to do more than 5.
Right.
No,
Right.
we just run and answer the call. And they say, oh, fake it till you make it. Well, somebody's going to get hurt
Yeah.
when
Right.
you're faking your leadership. And so once you start to throttle back, kind of like that slow down or speed up, right?
Yes.
Once you start to throttle back and say, okay, Enrique, what's your true capability here? And you're not afraid to say, hey, look, I would love to be in that position. But the fact is that I'm not capable at this moment. I'll have to get some training. I'll have to get to facilitate the proper handling and nurturing of that group. What's going to happen is I'll be able to do 1 or 2, but the others are going to go by the wayside.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a true assessment of somebody, of yourself, right? Or
Right.
you could say, no, I could do 50, fine. 51, 2, but we're not willing to do that. So truth has to be at the forefront of you finding yourself.
Yeah.
Don't try to find try to find the truth about yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. I think that's been this theme in this half hour. I love it. I think it's so important. And it does take some time and introspection
Mm-hmm.
and I've noticed, well, gosh, it's fascinating to watch people actually switch careers
Mm-hmm.
and or even change up, and not even lateral, but over here, because this is their
Mm-hmm.
passion. This is what they love doing. And giving yourself permission to do that, because as high achievers it can be like you said, oh, I got to take this because, oh, I'm on this trail, I'm doing
Oh yeah.
this. But meanwhile, like, what's in the wake? Your family, your relationships, you're coming home stressed every night, and like, what is it all? It's a big thing. Well, thank you so much for bringing this forward, because I think it's powerful for people to take a moment to think about that. And I don't think anybody else I'm interviewing is going to bring that forward. So,
My
so how
pleasure.
can
My
people
pleasure.
get in touch with you, Enrique? We're going to put it down below here so that people can, but just tell them a little bit about how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, the best place is LinkedIn. You
Okay.
will find the only Enrique Acosta Gonzalez. That will be me. Um, or you can visit my website, triadleadershipsolutions.com. But please, by all means, go to Developing the Leader Within podcast on any YouTube, any podcast platform. If you look it up on the web, you'll find it.
Beautiful.
And you can find me that way.
Beautiful. And I did find you through LinkedIn. I appreciate LinkedIn because then you get to see me and see if you want to do anything with me. So, well, I'm so happy that we've created this friendship and that I invited you here because this was powerful for people. And I look forward to staying friends here and moving forward. And just bless you. Thank you so much, Enrique.
No, thank you, and definitely we'll get collaborating.
Okay, great. And so, everybody, stay tuned. Tomorrow, we will have another wonderful guest and we will continue this leadership summit. So, have a great day.